This is not your father's TV show. Then again, I'm not sure if it's anyone's show. Hey, it's Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans. We've got another great program for you and a very special guest, so hang around. As we do, top of the program, what's been going on? Like, election season is finally over. Not a moment too soon. Especially the political ads, you know. Did you see that one? It was a national ad that claimed that Jesus was against the minimum wage. That's right. He was against the minimum wage for workers. And they backed their claim by saying you could look it up in the Bible, and it was right there in the book of Job. So that's what they said. How about the job the Cleveland Browns have done? First place, 10 weeks into the NFL season. That hasn't happened maybe since biblical times. It's been a long time, though. And, I was thinking about that. Gee, the Browns are in first place. LeBron is back with the Cavs. And you know what? The Mayans got it all wrong. The end of the world is this year. Gee whiz. And the Browns really whipped the Bengals down in Cincinnati recently. There was a big win for them. And the Bengals quarterback, Andy Dalton, man, he had a tough game. Quarterback rating of 2. Greg, that's just 2 more than me and you. We didn't even play the game. 2. And he's taking a lot of heat because he's got that big $100 million contract. The Bengals are notorious for being cheap. But in his case, they dipped into the team's bail bond fund to come up with the cash. So it worked that way. And how about the actor Stephen Bauer? Did you hear this? He's 53 years old, and he's dating and involved with an 18-year-old young lady. She's in her second year of college, I believe, and a lot of people are really upset about this. But hey, this is not the first time that a senior has dated a sophomore. Hey, it's Loose Change. Canfield Athletic Director Greg Cooper joins us next. You want to hang around? We'll be right back. Yeah, I will.
Turn your whole home on to high-definition programming. With Armstrong's HD digital adapter, it's easier and more affordable than ever. The HD TV in the kitchen? Finally get high-definition picture and sound. The HD TV in the family room? Add all your favorite high-def channels at a price you can afford. Our HDDA now features an on-screen guide. To order your HD digital adapters, visit ArmstrongOneWire.com/turniton. Armstrong, One Wire, infinite possibilities.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I told you we had a special guest. He's Canfield Athletic Director Greg Cooper. Greg, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. As we like to do with our guests off the top, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from. I know you're a local guy, and where you went to school and how your career has progressed.
I'd love to. I'm a local guy, and then I'm not. I grew up, went to Boardman High School, and was very fortunate to be there at a nice time, nice community, great folks. Mm-hmm. And then I went off to college, went to the Naval Academy, and had a career in the Navy. So I was away from home for basically 30 years, 34 years, and then had the opportunity to return to the Valley. So I'm a Valley guy, and it's still great to be home, but I've got a lot of experiences and a lot of time away from the Valley, which has been kind of unique as well.
Well, talk about that naval experience. That's really intriguing. What was that like for you?
Well, again, I was very fortunate because at Boardman I participated in sports, and actually that kind of led to my going to the Naval Academy, in that I had been recruited to play football, mm-hmm. but ended up wrestling at the Naval Academy. I had had success at the high school level and wrestled. And then after graduating from the Naval Academy, I went to flight training. I was a pilot.
Oh, wow.
And I had a full career, in the Navy as a naval aviator, naval officer. Wow. Had command of a squadron, and really had a full career, but still kept tied into sports. Certainly when my kids were growing up, doing the typical father coaching of the youth teams, that sort of thing. And then when it came time to go to the War College for a year, I was a geographic bachelor. And the Naval Academy Prep School happens to be up in Newport, where the War College is. And so I made contact with the folks there and said maybe I could help out with their wrestling program. And they said, well, we need more than help. You can be the coach.
Oh, wow.
So I was the head coach there, and had always entertained thoughts of maybe going back to the Naval Academy on staff. And that actually came to fruition as my last tour of duty before I retired from the Navy. They sent me to the Naval Academy to really a dream job where I was the Deputy Director of Athletics and head of the Physical Education Department, which was really a privilege and an honor, and loved every minute of it. And I kid everybody and say, boy, they treated me a lot better there the second time I was there as a Navy captain than they did when I was a midshipman. But it led me to my career in athletics and the opportunity to be the athletic director at Canfield.
Do you still fly?
Unfortunately not. I had all the licenses.
Over here. In a different way.
No, I wish I could, but I was very fortunate to have had a long career. I flew a number of different aircraft. I flew over 5,700 hours. I'm happy to brag, but I had over 500 carrier arrested landings, and tried to keep in the cockpit for as long as I could, but eventually I promoted and aged myself out of the cockpit, so to speak. And although the lure of commercial pilot career loomed, I stayed in the Navy, and now for me to fly, I have the licenses to do so, but if I'd have to pay for the gasoline and pay to rent the airplane, that's not as good a deal as in the military, where they did that.
What's it like to fly? You flew fighter jets?
Well, I flew a jet aircraft, carrier-based jet aircraft called the S-3 Viking.
Okay.
And it was a 4-seat aircraft, twin engine, used for surveillance, anti-submarine warfare, and in-flight aerial refueling. And to show my age now, they've recently retired that aircraft from the inventory, so I kind of feel like my age is shown a little bit when they've moved on to other aircraft.
Is that how it works, though? You got to get the contractors the new
sure enough.
the new stuff to build.
Sure. But I had great opportunities there, and met some wonderful people, and I feel very fortunate that my involvement in athletics gave me the opportunity to do those things, serve my nation, be in the Navy, and certainly gain an awful lot from it. And to be able to come back into athletics initially at the college level and now at the high school level has been really a privilege and a treat.
Well, just one more thing on that, though. You mentioned, I think, War College. Is that what?
The Naval War College, yeah.
What is that?
It's postgraduate education where for mid-level naval officers, it's an opportunity to spend a year and get a master's degree in international affairs.
Oh, yeah?
And it's up in Newport, Rhode Island, and it's a wonderful postgraduate education opportunity. Unfortunately, my family couldn't come with me under the circumstances, so I had some free time and spent some time with the Naval Academy Prep School, and tried to keep my connections with the coaches and folks that I knew at the Naval Academy, and eventually I was able to go back there. So.
What a resume, Greg. We're going to have to leave here. This is, he's above our pay grade here.
Not hardly.
What you got involved, in the athletic department at the Naval Academy, how did that come to fruition, and what was that like for you?
Well, the position that I was filling, they liked to have former Navy athletes, if they can, at the commander or captain level, which I fit that criteria. And timing mattered, and it worked out very, very well. And the opportunity to go back there and work with the midshipmen, work with the coaches. In fact, I was on the faculty in that I taught a class to the sophomore class midshipmen, the youngsters they called them. And it was, the Naval Academy is the type of place where I think they take fine young men and women, make them better citizens. And I have to admit that going back there again, just to be on the staff, was a privilege, because just being there and being around those people, I felt like they helped make me a better citizen, a better person. And it was just a wonderful experience. And hopefully I had a positive experience on some of the young men and women that were going through there. Had
you had any training or any educational courses in terms of being involved in the athletic department, or was that just something you just kind of grew into?
Well, having been an athlete at the academy, that certainly helped. I kind of had a shared experience, and certainly as a naval officer, they groom you for command. We're smaller groups, then rising up to maybe a squadron level or a ship or an air wing, major shore command, that sort of thing. As for specifically athletics, not directly, but an awful lot of the leadership things that they try to teach you are certainly applicable, hopefully applicable, in the athletic world as well.
What were the challenges for you in that role?
Well, the challenges there at the Naval Academy in the athletic department are not unlike what all the athletic directors here in the Valley have.
Okay.
Is that certainly you've got a diverse group of athletes, student athletes, coaches, parents, booster groups, and it's up to you to try to create order. You want to create the schedules. You have to make sure that your teams are playing the appropriate teams. You got to arrange for the officials. You've got to make sure that the playing venues are set. It's an awful lot of scheduling and planning so that hopefully those events that the parents go to on a Friday night or on a Saturday, hopefully it looks like it was all seamless and just naturally happened. And at the same time, the biggest issue is you're trying to provide a situation for these young men and women so that they will have fond memories of their time being a Cardinal,
Absolutely.
in our case, but also hopefully we're teaching them life lessons. Hopefully we're giving them experiences that will make them better citizens down the road. And the issue of educational-based athletics is kind of an American tradition, and I think it's a wonderful thing. We have an opportunity to do wonderful things with our young men and women,
Yes.
and hopefully, that's part of the educational process in schools, is that we're taking advantage of the teachable moments on the playing fields or in the pool or on the court. And it's a privilege to be a part of that.
Well, certainly one thing that I've appreciated, and I know Greg mentioned the same, that how you have transitioned into this position with Canfield and how you deal with the media. Was that a big thing at the academy there, dealing with the media in your position?
Not just at the Naval Academy, but as I became more senior in the Navy, they tried to expose us to how to deal with the media, how to try to
great.
get your message across,
Yes.
how to hopefully not embarrass yourself, like maybe I'm doing now.
No, I do that.
But
You're all right.
the idea is that the media is a great opportunity, and particularly locally, the idea that you can take this chance to expose the community to the hard work and the accomplishments of your young student athletes, the time and effort they've put in to become good football players or wrestlers or basketball players or swimmers or golfers. It's nice to be able to recognize those that have worked hard and done well, and not only have achieved success, playing their sport, but also as young citizens. It's great to pat them on the back and wish them well as they further themselves beyond high school, but that also acts as a role model
Absolutely.
situation where the next generation learns from it, and hopefully they take note.
Well, I have to ask, and I'm sure it's going to be a great answer. What's Army-Navy like, the big game?
Army-Navy is a competition, and it's hard to describe. It's like Ohio State, Michigan. Mm-hmm. It's like USC, UCLA.
Sure.
It's like it is the big game in every sport. Football probably gets the most notice,
Right.
certainly. But in every sport, for example, if you letter at the Naval Academy, you earn a varsity letter. They still wear letter sweaters, and you wear an N on your letter sweater. And if your team beats Army, you don't just get an N, you get an N with a chenille star, because that signifies a win against Army. Oh. And you can be and it's not a cliche. The football team can be 0-10, but if you beat Army,
That's right.
you've salvaged the season. And it's always a big competition. And as much as it's a competition, it's unlike a lot of competitions in that, you'll fight tooth and nail. You fiercely contest the game, but at the same time, the cadets from Army and the midshipmen from Navy, there's still a shared level of respect that you may not find elsewhere, because you know that those folks that you're playing in whatever your sport now, 2 or 3 years from now, you'll be together serving your country, and it's fun to be able to have that back and forth amongst them, but ultimately you know that they're your teammates in a grander sense.
Fascinating stuff. Can you hang around for a few more minutes?
I'd love to.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Greg Cooper, we'll be right back here on Loose Change. Stick with us.
Watch TV everywhere with Armstrong. Now you can download apps from your favorite networks directly to your tablet or smartphone. Use your Armstrong password to verify. Sign in once and start watching. You'll have access to full-length episodes, special features, and much more. Use your apps anywhere, in your home or on the go. It's so convenient. TV everywhere from Armstrong. One wire, infinite possibilities.
Back on Loose Change, I'm Jim Evans, along with Canfield Athletic Director Greg Cooper. We were talking about Army-Navy before we got in the break, and I got to think, just especially the football game, that experience, just to be there, is so unique.
For those that get a chance to play in it, they say it's the pinnacle of their collegiate career. But even in the other athletic events, and in my case it was wrestling, that was always the big match. That always mattered at least as much as any other match. And it's special, particularly when you're competing against a fellow service academy.
And it has to be fun to be there as a fan. It just has to be.
It really is dramatic, and in fact, I've been to, in person, I think, to 8 Army-Navy games. And I'm happy to say that every time I've gone, Navy's won. And I don't know that I had any influence on that. But the pregame is just eye-watering to see the brigade of midshipmen march in.
Yeah.
You're going to get me to choke up here. The Corps cadets come marching in, and they'll have a pregame flyover. The Army helicopters and the Navy will have aircraft, and a lot of the veterans. It's special. It's special, and it's just a real treat to be a part of it, even on the periphery.
Can't even imagine. What about Air Force? We talked a little bit about that while we broke away, and you don't hear much about that, but is there?
Part of that is because the Air Force Academy is out in Colorado Springs, but they have a very vibrant athletic program.
Yes, they do.
And certainly the service academies play each other each year in football, and they have a Commander-in-Chief's trophy that the winner of the football round robin gets, and then they visit the president to actually be awarded the trophy. So certainly the Air Force Academy, although they're a newer school, so to speak, they've managed to hold their own, certainly, and then some in football, and they're a rival, although the Navy just didn't see them in all sports quite as frequently.
And you had touched on the dates of the years when the academies were established. Army earlier than Navy.
The West Point grads may hold me account, but I believe the military academy in West Point was founded in like 1803.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah. And the Naval Academy was in 1845. And now the Air Force Academy, as it became its own service, they ended up with their own service academy. And I believe it was in the mid-50s that they actually established the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. So they're relatively new, so to speak, in the way of tradition, but they've certainly made up for that lost time in their successes overall.
You watch Navy play football, and they just run the ball. They run that wing thing, and maybe they should run the II formation a little more. But what they do, they're almost unstoppable on offense. So it's always fun to watch them. But there's always a discussion here, certainly more of late with Youngstown State, and maybe the league they play in is great, but geographically it kind of still doesn't fit for our area. But it works for now. And there's always talk about, they should be playing this team and that team. And I've always said, and I know this is easier said than done, because scheduling, I'm sure, is much more difficult than I could even imagine. But I always felt if any of the service academies were to come here, they'd fill that place. Stambaugh Stadium would be overflow. I don't know if there's
Kent State, I believe, played Army this season. And if it had been a better weather, I think that would have helped. But the part of the thing that the Naval Academy sells is they'd been an independent in football until just now they're going to the, I guess it's the All-American Conference. But one of the things that they had been able to do is they scheduled nationally. And they like to play, and they'll play some toughies. They'll always play Notre Dame, which is a tremendous, long-standing rivalry. Yeah, they certainly try. Do. But the Navy, one of the things they can sell to an opponent is that when they show up, they'll bring the pageantry of the brigade and the midshipmen there, and certainly that's allowed them to be attractive, provided that they can qualify to some bowls, because the team travels pretty well, and folks will come out to see their Naval Academy team play.
No question. To me, that's almost a no-brainer. But again, it's easier for us, certainly in the media, to say, well, they should schedule this team and that team. And it just doesn't work that way. Yeah. As you even know, at the high school level, I mean, scheduling is not as easy as everybody thinks it is. Or is that the case?
Well, it's interesting. If you could, you want to play as many games as you are allowed to. Mm-hmm. And you have to try to have a matrix in your mind as to, okay, first of all, for those of us that are fortunate enough to be in the league, and that's most schools, you've got your league schedule, and yes, by and large, you're going to play your league schedule, which is great because that precludes you having to schedule every single game one at a time, 2 or 3 phone calls to do it. So you use that as your basis, and then you say, okay, now, how do we flesh out this schedule? Let's see what makes sense. Finances may come into it. It might be really great for us to play a team from Cincinnati, but can you really justify the expense of the travel? Okay. Mm-hmm. It might really make sense to play a big school, much bigger than you, but they happen to have a classic rivalry with you. You have to look also at I don't know, at least in my case, I've always said, if we're going to play a series, we're going to play 10 times over the course of 10 seasons. Mm-hmm. If we don't have a chance in, of winning maybe 3 to 4 times, we got to be careful about chewing, tearing off more than we can actually chew. Mm-hmm. I mean, it might be great to play a team much larger than you financially because of the game and everything else, but you have to worry too about you don't want to put your kids in a situation where they could be subject to injury, and you want them to at least have an opportunity to be successful, and it's tough.
Well, what's the job like? You touched on that some early on in our interview, but just to be athletic director, what are the things that you have to do throughout the course of the
Well, I can only speak for a school that's mid-sized with a fairly large athletic program. Some schools are a little smaller, have fewer sports. Some schools, their athletic director might be the assistant principal and or teach 2 or 3 classes. Mm-hmm. And even for the smaller schools, my hat is off to those individuals because they must be busier than a one-armed paper hanger. But I'm fortunate at Canfield. We're a relatively, I guess, intermediate-sized school. Yes. And I'm a full-time athletic director, and I joke a little bit about maybe I'm just slow, in the sense, but I find something to do every day, all day. And again, the idea is that you're worried about your athletic events for today and for tomorrow, the transportation for those events. You want to make sure that the officials are lined up for the games that you're going to be hosting. What about their checks? What about selling tickets that night? Who's going to sell tickets? Do you have the police set up for security? Gee, you're going to handle a phone call, and even though this might be fall, you're trying to schedule baseball games or even football games for next year. And, every day, you come into the office with a plan as to what you want to do, what projects you want to work on. And usually that doesn't survive the first 5 or 10 minutes in the office because the phone rings and things happen.
How do you get people to work on game night? How does that happen?
Well, we're fortunate at Canfield that we have a system where we offer positions to sell tickets, take tickets, and to help oversee the events to our teachers and employees, and they receive a small stipend for that particular event. And also, we rely very heavily on our parents and our booster groups who come in and will set up and run the concession stands and really provide the opportunity to take our programs not just on game night, but across the board, from adequate good to excellent to outstanding. And you really can't say enough about the parents and the fans and the coaches themselves who sacrifice. And the folks that coach, they don't do it for the money, because if they did, there certainly were never economics majors. and the parents and others, they'll donate a lot of time and effort just to try to provide a great experience for their children, and that's very much appreciated.
Do you work a lot hand in hand with the coaches? I know you do, but I'm not sure to what extent, especially in terms of scheduling and things like that.
And again, I can only speak for Canfield, but generally speaking, I don't schedule in a vacuum. Like I said, I'll take that conference schedule and put that down, and then we say, okay, let's look at open dates. Let's see what fits. Coach, who would you think would provide a positive experience? Who do you want to play? Let's see what we can do. And it's a give and take. And
Sure.
there are times when you're struggling to try to fill that schedule, and it's a collaborative effort. Has to be.
Canfield, the last public school in our area to play in a state championship football game.
That was just the year before I arrived here, and certainly the memories are still strong, and it was a wonderful run. And certainly our congratulations go out to Hubbard and even that team on the other side of 224 Poland, who's in the running and in for a big game tomorrow. We've got Liberty that's done a tremendous job. We've got Fitch that's doing a great job, and ironically, Western Reserve, they're in the playoffs against Lucas this Saturday, and they're practicing on our field tonight and last night because we have an artificial turf field, and they wanted to have that opportunity, and we certainly wanted to help them out. But it's a great run.
Yeah, and you look at the facilities that you've got going there, and that speaks a lot, doesn't it, to the community and their support, and how much they're involved.
Oh, particularly in our case, an awful lot of our athletic complex has been raised by our booster groups and by private entities. Yeah. It's a significantly smaller amount of public money than you might think.
Okay.
And that's again, we're fortunate that we've had folks to step up and organize and support us in that regard.
What we only have probably a moment and a half here, but what are the biggest challenges that athletic departments at the high school level face now? Is it finances? Is it beyond that? Or
finances are always going to be an issue, particularly with the crunch toward an education. I think there's also the concern that you want to provide a proper experience for your young men and women. And we're not perfect. I'm sure there are times when we falter, and we hope to minimize those. I think that probably the biggest challenge is trying to make sure that we live up to the ideals that we espouse. And hopefully we're doing that at Canfield.
Well, I'll tell you what, every time we come over and do a broadcast, a radio broadcast for football or basketball, you treat us like gold, and you can't appreciate that enough. I know Greg feels that way, and you got game notes for us and that type of thing, and I can't tell you how much that means to us to do a broadcast.
There's an ulterior motive, and it's a chance to get our story out about our kids and our programs that we're very proud of. And we very much appreciate the coverage. I mean, we thank you for that opportunity to tell our story.
Well, you do a terrific job. I can't thank you enough for being on our show here. And we'll see you down the road.
I certainly hope so. Thank you.
Greg Cooper, Athletic Director at Canfield. We'll take our final break, and we'll be back to wrap it up here on Loose Change.
When your product isn't as good as cable, you hire an expensive law firm. When you hire an expensive law firm, they write small print.
Smaller.
When people don't read the small print, they sign up for a product that is not as good as cable. When they discover that they signed up for a product that is not as good as cable, they read the small print. When they read the small print, they lose consciousness. Don't lose consciousness. Stick with Armstrong and never be surprised by the dish's small print. Armstrong, one wire, infinite possibilities.
That's going to do it for our show. Thanks so much for watching. Special thanks always to Greg Roden and to our special guest, Greg Cooper. I'm Jim Evans. We'll catch you next time right here on Loose Change. Can I use this door?